Welcome to the Golden Age of Cardboard podcast, where we remember a time when stacks of cards were held together with rubber bands and Mickey mantles were put in bike spokes. We hope you will enjoy and reminisce as you come along with us as we tell stories about the baseball cards from the Golden Age of Baseball. We will examine the state of the vintage baseball card market and talk to some of the greatest collectors in the hobby. You won't be hearing us talk about any chrome or shiny cards here. Now, to take you on this retrospective journey, here's your host, direct from the shallow end of the gene pool, my son, Mike Moynihan.
What's going on, everybody? I am Greg. I am not Mike. I am Greg from Midlife Cards, and I am filling in for Mike. He's taken a little hiatus for a little while, and he's asked for some guest hosts, and I am truly honored to be one of those hosts. So excited to be with you today for a discussion with a guy that I have a lot of admiration for, that I've gotten to know over the last few months. And I feel like I have a lot in common with him. And so when Mike asked me to come on and be a guest host, and I said, who should I have on with me? It was an easy decision. And so I want to introduce you to Darren. Darren's channel is called Return to Collecting. And Darren has a really awesome collection. And one of the things I like most about Darren's channel, and if you're not subscribed, you should, is he shows off a ton of his collection, and pretty much every time he shows one of his new pickups, I'm like, that's a card I want too. I just can't buy it yet. It's on the list. So Darren, thanks for coming on, and thanks for joining me. And hey, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because, you know, I feel like I've known you for a long time, and I feel we've texted a lot, we've commented back and forth a lot, we've emailed back and forth, but like we haven't really talked. And
never spoken, right?
Yeah. I know, we've never spoken. And so, in fact, we were playing phone tag on even talking before we came on today. So this is actually kind of cool that we're taking that step in our relationship today on the show. So Mike is allowing us to do that, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So when I first reached out to you and I said, hey, there's a few things that, you know, I think would be fun to talk about. And we kind of kicked around a couple of ideas. And one of the first things that came up for me that I was like, I would really love to hear Darren's take on. And there's really two that I want to talk about with you. But the first thing is, I was in the middle of doing my video that recently came out on the price difference between rookie cards and second and even third year cards, and how there's this huge drop. And we all like rookie cards, right? And, you know, you've got a lot of rookie cards. I think you'd probably consider yourself a rookie card collector.
Yeah. Yes.
But why are we rookie card collectors when the value is so much? There's such a drop. Like, for example, a Hank Aaron in a PSA 5, a rookie card, 1954 Topps Hank Aaron, is just under $5,000. But a second year, a 1955 Hank Aaron in a PSA 5 is about $700. So it's like 7 times more expensive for a rookie card than a second year card. And it's not like the second year card is ugly. Like, it's a cool card.
Agreed.
So being a rookie card collector, why are we still rookie card collectors when the value seems to be so much more affordable in the second, third year?
It's a good question. So me personally, I can't speak for everybody that's a rookie card collector, but me personally, I've been back into collecting now for about 4 years. And when I got back into collecting, one of the things that I wanted to do was buy some of the cards that I remember seeing as a kid when I would go to a baseball card store, go to a card show with my dad. I'd see these cards when I was a kid and say, oh my God, wow, maybe someday if I could afford it, I'd love to have this card, right? When I was a kid, I'd mow lawns and do, chores and whatnot, when I was like 10, 11, 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I would, I think the best card I ever bought was a 54 Topps Hoyt Wilhelm. That was pretty rough. It was before grading, wasn't graded. But I'd always see these other cards, and some of the cards that I would see back then, I just couldn't afford, right? Like I'd always wanted a Nolan Ryan rookie, never had one. And then when I got it, that was the first card I got when I got back into collecting. I started doing my Nolan Ryan run, and I was buying, obviously other cards, from his playing days. I realized while I'm doing that, if I have the money, I would like to pick up some of those cards that I remember as a kid, right? And it was a great example, the Hank Aaron. I think the Hank Aaron rookie was maybe the 5th card I bought when I got back into collecting, just because it was so iconic from when I was a kid and I wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
I picked that up, and then I think when I picked that up, I picked up a 56 Mantle, which obviously isn't his rookie card. I finished my Nolan Ryan run, and at that point, it's okay. Now that my Nolan Ryan run's done, what do I want to do next?
Mm-hmm.
And I just decided pick up some more, cards that I just wanted from when I was a kid. And when I think of those cards, I think of the cards that were, more iconic cards. The cards when I was a kid, I would buy the books about collecting cards, and
Mm-hmm.
even some of the books now, a lot of them are rookie cards. Now, there's a lot of cards on my list in the future that aren't necessarily rookie cards, but I kind of got into that just kind of that flow of buying the rookie card, because I think personally, with few exceptions, the most iconic card for each player is usually their rookie card, not always.
Yeah.
Mickey Mantle's a good example, right? His 52 Topps was his most iconic card, not his rookie.
Sure.
But other than that, I think, most of the time the rookie's the iconic card. So I started collecting that because I just thought it would be fun to collect the iconic card. Now, other than Ryan, I haven't done like a player run. And I figured if I just started doing rookie cards, at some point, if I decide to do a player run, I've already purchased the most expensive one. So now it's okay, cool. I could, it's less impactful in the future. Right. So
Right.
that's why I started. And then when I started buying them, I just, I don't know, it was nostalgic, and I just started picking up more and more rookie cards. And then when I started doing my top 50 countdown, I tried to show in most cases the rookie cards. So there's a few rookie cards that I picked up specifically, for players on that countdown.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's not so much that I picked the rookie card because for any other reason other than it's nostalgic for me, and I just, I like the card.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely other cards outside of rookie cards that I collect, and on my next round of list, like my 2024 list,
Mm-hmm.
I think the majority of those actually aren't rookie cards. Just, I guess, getting back into collecting, for lack of a better way of saying it, I guess, building up my base of my card collection from getting back into it. I just ended up going with rookie cards, and I don't know. I think sometimes, if I'm having a rough day at work or whatever, and I say, I just need to relax, and I could, pull out my Hank Aaron rookie card, or
right. That'd get me to relax.
Yeah, just be like, this is such a cool card. I don't know.
Right.
So for me, it's just I do it because I enjoy it, not so much.
Yeah.
And I have no intention ever of selling my cards. I was talking, actually, it was funny. My family was in town for Thanksgiving. I brought them back to the airport today, and it's about an hour and a half drive to the airport. So I was talking to my brother on the way up, and he asked me, he's like, "Are you ever going to sell your cards?" And I said, "No, my grandkids will sell my cards, right? Maybe, hopefully not, but the minimum, my grandkids will sell my cards." So I don't buy any cards because I look at it as a true investment. I sometimes I'll look at the value of the card, and sometimes I'm like, if I waited, I could have got it cheaper, or I should have bought it earlier to be cheaper, right?
Sure.
But other than that, I don't do it for any reason other than I enjoy it. So for me, I just like rookie cards, and they're the kind of cards that I like to pick up. And I just, my collection is it's not big. I think I've got maybe 250 graded cards in my collection. So it's not huge. It's just where I've been because I'm just getting back into it.
Yeah.
Long story, come back around for the question you asked me 10 minutes ago.
No, that's great. And so it's interesting to me because that response that you just gave, I feel like I have like 5 questions for you from that response. And so I'm going to be a little scatterbrained, I'm sure, and which is part of the effect of not having had these conversations prior.
Sure.
But so when you were a kid, you were into vintage cards, not modern cards?
Yeah. When I was a kid, when I was a kid, I would open packs with my friends, but my grandfather and my dad were both big baseball fans. My grandfather didn't collect. My dad, he didn't really collect, but when we would talk about, we'd go on family vacation road trips and stuff, and the whole time in the car we talk baseball history. And the people that I learned about from him growing up were all vintage players, right? So I had much more of an interest in that. I think when I was a kid, like I said, the best card I bought was the Hoyt Wilhelm. The best card I had in my collection was the 62 Topps Manager's Dream card. I got that as a birthday present.
Wow.
When I was probably 12.
Do you still have that card?
No, I bought a new one because I missed it. I bought a new one. It's in my mom says it's in a box in the garage somewhere. I've been going through boxes in the garage for the last 4 years when I go back to their house, and I haven't found it yet. So hopefully the upside is you remember the old screw down plastics that were like, an inch thick? It's in there. So hopefully it's in good shape, except if I want to send it to PSA, it'll get altered because it got squished, I'm sure.
Sure.
But other than that, no, we have it in the family. I just don't have it in my possession at this time.
So anybody who's listening or watching and isn't familiar with that card, the 1962 set is the one with the wood border, and the Manager's Dream card is the card that has Mantle and Mays on it, which is a very cool card. I mean, maybe the 2 icons of that era. And it's a really cool pose. It's probably at like an all-star game or something. And it's just such a cool card. So I know that you were thinking about showing some of the rookie cards. And when you were talking about your Nolan Ryan, I've seen your Nolan Ryan rookie card, and it is not just your average Nolan Ryan rookie card. Do you have that one to show?
I will momentarily.
Sure, you can. I'll start. I'll talk about it. So, Darren, I don't know how. I guess I was on a little live thing with you or something. We were in a live room, and you said, "Hey, check out my Nolan Ryan rookie card." I don't really remember what it was, and you showed it, and it's an older SGC label, and I'm going to describe it as you show it because, again, I know a lot of people listen and just stream this audio, so they can't see what you're about to show. But if you want to go ahead and show it, so it's an older label SGC, and it's a 96, and the old label SGC system, went up to 100. And they didn't really give hundreds. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen 100. I think a 96 is the highest I've ever seen. So I know their calculation turns that into a 9, but that's about the nicest quote unquote 9 on earth. It's basically in SGC's older viewpoint. That was as high a grade as you can get, right?
Yeah. I love this. This was the card that got me back into collecting. I love it. This is my favorite card in my collection. If I had to sell my collection, this is the one card I wouldn't sell. And it's so clean. It's centered,
perfectly centered, and those borders are so easy to get little scuffs, and the edges are just so sharp, and even the back is centered.
Yeah, the back it's within the range of a 10.
Yeah, 10 technically can be 60-40.
Right, and I would say
it's easily 60-40 on the back.
Yeah, it's about that. And I've looked at I've looked at a couple. When I first got back into collecting, I pulled a couple high res pictures of some PSA 9s of this card and compared it to the PSA 10, and I can't tell the difference. I think the one PSA 10 and the one SGC 10, they both are slightly off-centered on the back and about the same on the front, and just as clean corner-wise, edge-wise. So I'm not quite sure how they grade the 9. I mean, I don't know what takes it from a 9 to a 10 with either SGC or PSA, because they're just so close, and the two 10s that exist from each are both slightly off-centered on the back. So
have you ever thought about sending that back into SGC? Because being that SGC does 9.5s, PSA doesn't. PSA's 10 and then it drops to 9. SGC does do 9.5s. It seems like with that grade and the look of it, it would at least be a 9.5. Have you considered that? Like bringing it to national?
I've thought about it. A couple of people have asked me if I wanted to cross it to PSA. And I said no, because just knowing if I send it to them in an SGC slab, they'll probably give it an 8 and I'll go through the roof. So not worth it.
Right.
But I was thinking I have some family in South Florida. So I was thinking if next time I go down to visit, I might bring it with me and try to make an appointment at SGC ahead of time and bring the card in and sit down with them and see, is this something that they would reslab potentially, to get it in the new slab so it just says 9 and not 96.9, or possibly regrade it for possibly a 9.5.
And you wouldn't want to do that at the national? I mean, because Peter is there at the national. You could probably book an appointment with him. And say, here's my card. I think it's a 10. This is basically your old 10 grade. What do you think?
I would do it either the national or just take it to SGC next time I'm in Florida and just make an appointment. But yeah, that's definitely something I would consider. I definitely wouldn't cross it to PSA, but I would consider getting it reslabbed to see if they would potentially look at regrading it at a potential higher grade. And yes, my only concern is if it did get a 9.5, I'm pretty sure SGC is like PSA where they will charge you based on the value of the card.
They have some tiers, but the tiers are nothing like PSA tiers.
Okay, well that's good.
Pretty high. It's a pretty high tier that stays at the $15. Okay, and you have to get that card would be above the tier, and I don't know the jumps because it was only maybe a month and a half ago that they switched it.
Oh, okay,
but I mean, if you got that regraded with PSA and it got like a 10, you'd be writing them a big check. But if you did it with SGC, it would not be that significant of a check.
Yeah. Okay. And I need to look at that because I definitely know if it was PSA and it got even a 9.
Yeah.
I'd have to give him my card to get that thing
regraded. Because what is there? There's just 110, right?
Yeah. There's only 110, and I think it's sold in like 2018 or 2019 for like 650,000.
And so we're talking about, in theory, if that got a 9, that would be the second best ever graded by PSA. So I think there might be an upcharge, which they would be happy to send you.
They'd love to take it, I'm sure.
Yeah. My dad actually used to have. He had a PSA 9 Joe Montana rookie card.
Oh, nice.
But it was perfect. I mean, he bought it raw 25 years ago, and he got it graded 15 years ago. But it's like, no, this is perfect. And they gave it a 9. And he sent it in. He resubmitted it for the 10. And they did it. They moved it to a 10. And the upcharge, they called him and they're like, you're going to have to send us like an extra like $600. And he's like, but if I send you $600, it'll be a 10, right? And they're like, yeah, because that's the only grade higher than a 9. So yeah, it's going up. And he's like, couldn't write the check fast enough,
Right, exactly.
So, so interesting. And so I know you're a big Nolan Ryan guy. You've got your Nolan Ryan jersey that you've shown on your channel. And again, I do also want to point out, a minute ago, you talked about your top 50 countdown. If you're not a subscriber of Darren's yet. Again, I recommend it, Return to Collecting. And he goes through his top 50 players of all time. And as he gets to each player, he shows cards from his collection of that player. And so he was referring earlier to he had bought a few cards of rookie cards of players for that countdown. And so that's what he was referring to. And right now, last I checked, you're on like number 33 or 32 or something like that. Is that right?
35 was
35
last week. So yeah, 34 will drop on Friday.
It was Eddie Collins, I think. Is
Yep.
that the last one?
Yep, Eddie Collins is 35 last Friday, and then I do the countdown I drop it every Friday at midnight. So
I legitimately look forward to those videos because I get to see cool cards from your collection. Nice. So those are very cool. So check those out if you're out there listening. But back to the Nolan Ryan. So you have the Nolan Ryan run. You have the huge Nolan Ryan rookie card. You have a cool Nolan Ryan jersey that's signed, and if I remember correctly, it had some stats or some extra inscriptions or stuff on it. Like, why Nolan Ryan?
He was my favorite player as a kid. He was my favorite player to watch as a kid, and I think what locked him in as my favorite player is when he got in this fight with Ventura.
Yeah,
and I just thought that was so cool that like the old guy, beat up the kid. I thought it was great.
How old were you during all of it? Like, when were you opening packs? You said you opened packs with your friends.
Yeah, I started opening packs. I'm pretty sure I started opening packs in 87. I don't remember ever opening 86s when I was a kid. I think I started in 87, 87, 88, 89. And 89, my mom got me for my birthday. She bought me the complete set of the 89 Upper Deck.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember that, and then I probably collected for another couple of years. So I probably collected 87 to maybe 91. Okay. And then I stopped collecting, and I still would watch baseball. I didn't go to a lot of games, and I didn't collect anything from when I was probably, I don't know, maybe 14 until I was 40.
Mm-hmm. And so we must be pretty similar in age then, because 87 was when I really started too. And I'm 44, so
I turned 45 on Sunday.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. You did a video talking about your birthday. I'm like, I didn't know it was your birthday, so I said, "Happy birthday!" Yeah, that's so funny. So we are the same age basically. So back to the rookie card, second year card, kind of the gap thing. Are there, when you look at it personally, as a collector, so is it like a price point thing then? Because I do agree with you, like the iconic cards of these guys are their rookies. Like I mean, I can picture in my head pretty much everybody's rookie card from about 48 to almost on.
Right.
Like, there's probably a couple that I would struggle on, but if we're talking like Hall of Famer or even star, sure, I can pretty much picture those. But a lot of them I can't picture the second year. Now I can of the guys from like the 50s. Like I can picture, a second year Yogi Berra and a second year, Willie Mays. But I might not be able to picture like a second year Willie Stargell or something.
Right.
I totally get the iconic thing. So if somebody was newer to collecting and the rookie card was not really affordable, or they had more limited funds on how to spread it, do you think, so if you had a friend that was getting into collecting and they didn't have pockets that they could go out and buy a bunch of rookie cards, would you say, go for the second year cards, like get 4, 5, 6 second year cards, or would you say save and wait and get the rookie card of the guy that you like?
That's a good question. I would say I would look at it a couple of different ways. If the person wanted if they wanted to just build out their collection and that was kind of the goal, absolutely go for second, third year cards. Go for later cards for years that they, did something interesting, right? Like if a player, for example, like if somebody says, hey, I want to buy some cards of Yankees, but I don't have a humongous budget. I say, okay, depending upon the budget, rather than buy a Mickey Mantle card, maybe buy a 62 tops Roger Maris that shows his 61 or 61 home runs in 1961, right? Like cards like that. So maybe a card for an iconic year for the player, or like second or third year. Absolutely. If my friend were to ask me hypothetically, I'm more of a quality over quantity, then I'd say there's a lot of cool second year cards to look at. And if there's some iconic rookies you want, you're better off saving and getting that than buying, maybe third or fourth year cards where as you build up the number, they end up in like a box as opposed to like somewhere where you could like display it and enjoy it. Would probably be my advice. Like if you're trying to do like a player run, or if you're saying, hey, I haven't collected in a long time and I want to build up a base, then I would say absolutely go for cards from iconic years and or second or third. If somebody says, I have like a case that fits 10 cards and I just want cool cards for that case, and I don't really have a time frame of how quickly I want to fill it, then I would probably say that, then me personally, I would say save up and buy the rookies, or buy the rookies in the lower grade too. Like my brother, he got back into collecting about 2 years ago, and he has a ton of really iconic cards, but he buys all of his vintage in PSA 2. He finds PSA 2s that have really, really good eye appeal, and he buys them all in PSA 2. Like when we were at the National this year, he was there with us, and I picked up like, I think about maybe 6 or 7 cards. He probably picked up a dozen cards, but all of them were iconic cards, but he got great deals on some really good looking PSA 2s. So then, and that's another approach too, right? If you say, hey, I really love the look of the rookie cards, cool. Buy a Hank Aaron rookie in an authentic that has good eye appeal, or buy it in a one that has a beautiful front, but somebody might have stuck it in a book so the back has, glue on it, or a little bit of paper loss, or tape or something, right? Buy it that has nice, eye appeal on the front, right? I think there's a lot of ways to go about getting the cards that you want based on whatever your budget is. So for me, it's more, if somebody were to say, how do I do it? I would say, what do you want to do? Right. Do you want to do a player run to start with? In that case, start with their last year card and then go from their newest to their oldest. That gives you the most time to save up for the, because a lot of guys, even, like Willie Mays, right? Great, iconic player. If you buy his 73 tops when he's on the Mets, get that in like a 6 for, $25 or whatever it is.
Right.
You don't need to save up for that, right? Just buy it. And then you can start, say, as you're buying like maybe a card every couple months, you put more money in savings than you spend on the card. So over time, you build up kind of that war chest to buy, his stuff from like the early 60s down into the 50s, right? So I think and that's the beauty of the hobby, right? Is there's a ton of different ways to do it. And you take the approach that I think, take the approach that makes sense to you and buy the cards that you like. And I know that there's some people that say, look, I buy cards for how, like, my impression of the look of the card, not so much how iconic the card is. And for that, awesome. Like there's a lot of players whose best looking card is not their rookie card.
For sure. And it's funny. I'm like so distracted as you're talking, and it, again, like I said earlier, like I have like 12 questions that are exploding as I'm listening to you, and I'm looking over your shoulders and as you're talking as well. And on one side, you've got, it looks like a display case with a bunch of Nolan Ryan cards, and then on the other side, you've got a case with like, because like one thing I don't talk about a lot is I talk about all the iconic cards from my childhood, like the 84 Donruss Don Mattingly, like the 86 Topps Update Bo Jackson, like the, all the cards that you've got up in the other case. It's like, it looks like you have a Jerry Rice rookie card up there, and you have like all these cards, and I'm like, those were the goal cards as a kid, when we were kids, those were the cards you all wanted, and you probably didn't have more than one or two of them.
Right.
And so, like, whenever I go to shows, I'm looking for those as
Mhm.
much as I'm looking for, the 33 Gaudy Lefty Grove that I want, right?
Right.
And so it's so funny that we're so cut from the same cloth. It's kind of scary. And I'm watching I'm watching that and learning about you. I've never noticed that before on your channel. I don't know if you have a different background or if I've just not noticed, or you had a tighter shot
Yeah.
usually, but I've never noticed that before.
Yeah, so I've got a few cases. This one here has, so my cases outside of this one
So
are
I'm going to describe as you're
chronological.
pointing, because there are people that are going to be listening. So on
Okay.
one side, it's the Nolan Ryan. And then on the other side that he's pointing to are a lot of the kind of kid grail cards if you grew up in the late 80s.
Mhm. Yeah, the top row of that case is my Derek Jeter rookie run.
Yeah.
And then the second row are some of Derek Jeter's high school cards.
Hmm.
And then some of my iconic basketball cards. I've got the Jordan rookie, the LeBron rookie, the Kobe Bryant rookie, and then I've got a Johnny Unitas rookie, and then the Ronnie Lott rookie. And then the next row, I've got a couple more modern ones. I got the Jerry Rice and the Mahomes rookie. And then from there, I have chronological, starting with the Mattingly's, because my other cases that are not behind me are chronological. I have one case from 1887 to 1951, and then the case next to it's 52 to 83,
Mm-hmm.
and then it jumps to 84 in the case behind me. So
Got it.
it's kind of jumbled a little bit, because
Got it.
when I first started collecting, I just put everything in those two cases, and then my wife pointed out that I need more cases, which was solid. So she bought me 2 more cases, and I filled them up.
So you're leading me to the other thing I wanted to talk about with you, and that's how do we decide what to buy next? Because for me, I've mentioned on my channel many times
Mhm.
that number one, I'm usually not patient. I've been patient with my 54 Ernie Banks for whatever reason,
Mhm.
but for most cards, I'm not patient, and I see it and I buy it when it's the one that meets what my eye is looking for.
Yep.
And so I have a lot of cards that I'd really like to get, but I'll start building up my war chest for one of those bigger cards, and before I get there, I go, that's a sweet 56 tops, Ted Williams. I need to have it. It's a 3.5, but it looks like a 7. I'm buying it. And
Mhm.
then I bring back down the ledger,
Yeah.
and I'm constantly trying to fill up the bathtub with the plug out.
Right.
Um, so what is your strategy? Because it's something that I'm not good at, and it's something that I'm curious on how other collectors do it. And you've got such cool stuff. What is your strategy? Like, how do you budget money for certain cards, and how do you decide? Is there a list of 5 cards and you're only going after those 5, or is it 20, or is there one and they move up, or how
Mhm.
do you decide what's next?
A couple things. So how do I decide what's next? I've got my list. So I had what I did was I looked at the cards I needed. So I'd have at least one card for each player on my top 50. And that was my list starting just before the national. I was like, this is something I want to do. And I noticed, I'm like, oh, well, when I made my list, I was like, oh, I got, I think, 32 of them already. So I was like, okay, so I got to pick up the other 18. And so I made that list, and that's what I really focused on. And I realized I was doing the same thing that you said is, I was like, okay, I'm saving up for some of the big ones. And then I went to a card show in Denver, and they had a 53 Bowman Ted Williams and a 39 play ball DiMaggio. Neither of them are rookie cards. And I wouldn't necessarily use those for my countdown, but I saw them at the show and I bought them. And I was like, well, war chest is 0. So, starting over. So when I did that, I took a slightly different approach. So what I do now is I have 2, it's so easy to, you go on your bank's website and just click open account, and they're like more than happy to open another savings account for you.
Right.
So I've got a baseball card account,
Mm-hmm.
and then I have a Grail card account. So what I do is in my baseball card account, I put a little bit of money in it. Each time I get each paycheck, I put a little bit of money in. If I get a bonus or something, I put some more money in. And when that hits a certain level, I move some of it into that Grail account, and I don't touch the Grail account. So if I'm going to go to a card show, regardless of how much is in the Grail account, I look to see how much I have in the card account, and that's what I spend at the card show. That way, worst case scenario, if I deplete that completely because, I saw 5 cards I really wanted that weren't on my list and I bought them, which happens every time I go to a card show, I don't touch the bigger savings that I've been setting aside for the Grail stuff. And that's helped control me saying, oh, hey, like on a whim, I might say, what I kind of want is, the Topps Finest Refractor from 93 Maddox. And I just go spend whatever on that card. And I'm like, crap, I could have bought a Mickey Mantle for what this thing cost.
Yeah.
I don't do that anymore because once the account hits 1,000, I put money into that goes in the Grail account, and I keep enough to go to a card show and pick up some stuff in the card account. That approach has helped me because I'm usually good with spending, except with baseball cards. I guess that's the only thing that I get a little sloppy with the control on.
Right. I'm the same way. I'm too tight with my money. I mean, we paid off our house about almost 2 years ago.
Nice.
And that was like a goal. Like I always set these goals and then I work really hard. And we took like a 20-year loan, then made it a 15-year loan, and we ended up paying off in like 9.
Nice.
And it was just like, and then, but the whole thing is when I do that, it'll free up more money. Like when Lucy has her soccer tournament down in San Diego, we don't have to really stress out because we don't have a house payment,
Yeah.
And so I'm like that with money, but with cards, like you, it sounds like I'm different. And I have my own card account, and I put money in there whenever I sell something, whenever I make some little extra amount of money. Occasionally YouTube throws me a few scraps and I'll throw that into my account. And then I kind of build it up a little bit, right? And then what ends up happening is that's kind of where it all then goes to whatever pops up. But so I've got 2 questions then, follow-up questions on this. Number 1, what's considered a Grail card? Right? Because you say it goes in the Grail card account. Like, is 1 card on the Grail list right now? Or are 10 cards or are 40 cards on the Grail card list? Because like I saw your video. And again, if you're not following Darren, check out Darren's channel and go to his national show pickups video. He had some really cool stuff that he got. So were those all Grail cards, or was just the biggest one a Grail card? So that's kind of, so hold on. So that's one part of it is does the money for a Grail card go toward one card, and what's the difference between a Grail card and a non-Grail card?
So for me, I would say I have a list of, let's not even call it Grail. Let's call it goal. Because to me, Grail's tough, right? Like for me, Grail might not be the right thing. There's true Grail cards. So for me, a true Grail card is something that's unobtainable, right? So an M1015 Babe Ruth rookie card for me is a Grail card, something that I'll probably never get, right? So then I have my goal cards, and I have different tiers of goal cards. And I used to tier it based on how badly I wanted it. And when I kind of looked a couple of years ago what I was spending on cards, I re-tiered it to price points. So it's like, okay, here's the cards I really want that are in like the highest tier price point that I'm willing to spend money on, right? I mean, if I won the lottery, it would be a different story, but it's, so I tier it out. And what I try to do is say, okay, once every couple of years, I might buy something from the top tier. And maybe once or twice a year, I'll buy something from the next tier down. So like, for example, at the National,
Yeah, show
I
us
grabbed
this
I grabbed
beauty.
some cards. I actually grabbed some cards when we're talking rookie cards. I
Yeah.
grabbed the rookie card from each decade. And I was going
Okay.
to show those, but
Show us the one from the 40s.
so let's see.
Because the one from the 40s at the National was phenomenal. There it is.
That's the
Oh
card I
my
picked from the 40s.
gosh.
So
So he's showing a Satchel Paige 49 Bowman in an SGC 5, and it's gorgeous.
so this was
Now
that
the
was
back,
my 40s
which is
pickup. So
beautiful.
this would be, I would consider that card in the not it would be the second to top tier card.
Okay.
Something that I would buy maybe one of a year at that price point max. Not something where it's like, hey, I would wait multiple years. But yeah, so there's that one.
And so a top, give me just a taste of what a top tier is besides the Babe Ruth. Is a 52
Well, the Babe Ruth's
mantle.
not in the top tier because it's an unobtainable for me.
Okay.
So
So
for
a
me,
top
I would
tier,
say I'm trying to think what's some good top tier.
52 mantle, 51 mantle, 51 mace.
Mantle. That's
Okay.
definitely on my list in my top tier. Something that maybe I'll pick up in the next couple of years. Hopefully. That's on there. There's a few. So I've got the yellow 33 Gaudy Babe Ruth. I would like to over time get the other three. All of them would be in that tier. What other cards are in that?
Sort
tier?
of like above 10. Well, that
Yeah.
Satchel is right in there too, but
I would
yeah.
I would say for me the top tier maybe is 10.
Okay.
There's a few cards that are a little below 10 that I keep in there. And there's a few cards in there that I put in there because I'm like, I don't know, maybe they'll come down in price or I'll find a good deal on like an authentic. Like one of my I would say my grail card that might be possible at some point would be a 36 Worldwide Gum DiMaggio. But that would probably be the very, very top. But that's almost like separate. That's like, hey, the kids are all out of college and they're off, they're off my dime. Maybe I'll start
Right.
that.
They're never going to be off your dime. You have girls.
That's true. But yeah, that I would say, I kind of tiered that way. So
okay.
With the National,
so how many cards are in that top tier then, you think? Maybe 5-ish, 6-ish?
Yeah, I would say probably 5 or 6. And with the way the card market's going now, one or two of one of the cards I had on the top tier that actually dropped down to slightly more affordable over the last 6-7 months is a 52 Topps Willie Mays. That used to be in the top tier, but the price points come down a little bit on that, like in a lower grade. So that's kind of how I do it. I kind of tier it out. And
now, do you have a physical list? Is it like an Excel spreadsheet, and it's broken up into the tiers? And so if the top tier is above 10K, what is the second tier, like 5 to 10, or is it like 2 to 10?
Yeah, I would say it's like probably 2 to 10, and then I wouldn't even say 2 to 10. I would say like 2 to 6.
Okay, and what are how many cards are in that tier for you that are on your want list?
75.
Oh,
but again,
you're a legit collector, bro.
my list is a long, this is my list, and maybe when we're having the same conversation after my 50th birthday,
right,
I'll say, hey, there's only 35 left out of the 75, right? So it's not a list for the year. This is I list my cards out, and when I see them in a price that makes sense and a grade that makes sense with the red eye appeal, I may pick it up. So what I did when I made my first list, I never really had a list, and I just would buy everything like random, right?
Yeah.
Then I locked my list in for my countdown, and I've been a lot better for the most part trying to stick to it. I still deviate, but I try to stick to it. Once the countdown list is done, I only have a few cards left on that one. then I've got a really big list of like, hey, there's some really cool iconic stuff I want to get, right? There's probably, out of that list, I would say only maybe 15 of those 75 are rookie cards, and the rest are not. They're just other iconic cards that I'm interested in.
So, not to interrupt, but I also am trying to keep us under an hour, and we're already at 45 minutes, and I could go for 2, but easily. So just because I'm literally asking you because I'm trying to learn. Like I'm learning from you right now some ideas. I'm like, yeah, I need to do that. I need to do that. So the money that goes from the regular card account to the goal card account, or we called it Grail at one point, but that card account, is that is that go toward cards in tier 1 and tier 2, or just tier 1?
Oh yeah, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3.
Okay.
Like nothing. When I use my card account, it's cards that are hundreds of dollars, not thousands.
Okay. And then you had mentioned earlier that your brother buys lots of stuff in 2s, and that's kind of his sweet spot where he can get the card. But as I've mentioned on my channel a lot, a 1 is like an F on a test. It could be a 2% on the test, or it could be a 58. Those aren't the same,
right?
But a 1 is the same thing. Like one that went down the garbage disposal gets a 1, and one that has a pinhole gets a 1, but they're not the same, you know? And so, but a two has a lot of criteria above that huge range, that huge piece of them out there. So I personally, like your brother, I target a lot of 2s with my pre-war stuff. So I've got a lot of 2s in T206s. I just bought a 2 T205 the other day.
Nice.
I bought a 333 Gaudi Carl Hubble the other day. And so that kind of 2-3 range is like a sweet spot for pre-war for me. What's kind of your sweet spot? I mean, we saw your satchel was a 5, and I know you went big on the Nolan Ryan because Nolan Ryan was your guy, and that's like your ultimate card. But when you're talking about a vintage card, you know, from the golden age of cardboard, right? And we're talking like the 50s or late 40s to early 60s. What's kind of your range that you look for? And I know grades are subjective, and we could get into a whole can of worms about grading, but it does provide a range of the quality of the card. So what's kind of your range that you shoot for?
I'm taking a look at some of these. I would say,
and you can show them instead of just looking.
Oh, you want me to show some? Okay.
Them. Yeah, show a couple.
So like some golden age cards, we'll say what I like this one. This is a 3 to T206. So I thought
T206 Ty Cobb red back in a 3 SGC 3 is the card that he's showing.
So yeah, so this one in a 3. So I would say T206s, I've got a few of them. They range from authentic to, I think I have one in like a 5, but it just depends on the player too, right? Like there's certain players that are less expensive, so I'm okay spending a little bit more for that. Now the Satchel Paige, my goal on the Satchel Paige was actually a 4, and I couldn't find a 4 at the National. There weren't a ton of these at the National, and I couldn't find a 4 there's only a few 4s that I had found. I couldn't find one that I thought had good eye appeal. So I found this 5 I thought had really good eye appeal, but I actually cut a couple cards off my list because I bought that one, and it was considerably over what I had planned to spend on my Paige card. Right. So, but some other ones, like here's a 1921 exhibits Rogers Hornsby. It's a 2. So, but it's I think it's a pretty clean looking 2.
Really well centered exhibits, black and white. It doesn't have any of the green tint color. It's just pure black and white, and that's a beautiful 2.
Yeah, that's one I was pretty happy with, and it's the back of it. It's nothing on the back to really mess up, right? You can't. Yeah, ring on the back looks perfect to me, right? It's just
for
all
sure.
white.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and so I would say below 5s. I mean, I did pick this one up recently, but because it's a playing card, they typically have slightly higher grades because the card stock's a little better. So this is a National Game Grover Cleveland Alexander from 1913 in a 5, but that's only because the card it's card stock, like playing card stock, right? So it holds up better. my Gehrig, my 33 Gotti Gehrig, I have this in a 3. So I
Mm-hmm.
would say, most of my pre-war stuff is 5 or less. Once I get into the 40s, it's probably a 4 or less. Like, this my Willie Mays, my 51 Bowman Mays is a 4.5.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't really jump into anything above a 5 until like the 60s, right? So I've got a Pete Rose and a 6,
Sure.
but 50s and older, I would say, with very few exceptions, below a 5.
Mm-hmm.
What I originally tried to do was go for the grade for the decade. So 40s cards and 4s,
Sure.
30 cards and 3s. And what I found was as you get to the older cards, there's fewer of them. They come up for sale less often. So you can't be quite as picky with, I only want that card in this grade, because you could be waiting for a really long time to find one.
Yeah.
So I kind
And
of
that's
adjust.
that's one of the struggles that I have, and that's why picking your brain right now and hearing other people's strategies good for me is because, like, that's one of my issues. Is like, if a card shows up online, and again, my range is kind of 2. I'll drop to a 1.5. If it's a nice one, I'll go up to like a 3.5. But much more than that, I just don't feel like the benefit is worth it for me. But when you're looking at a card that's, again, you want the eye appeal, but and the grade really doesn't matter. It just makes it's just having a range, I think, is helpful. But like you said, there are a lot of 2s that do not look good.
Mhm.
And then there are some 2s that are beautiful, that have that eye appeal.
Yep.
So it's hard for me when something pops up and I go, I'm not going to see another, uh, f- T205 chance
Mhm.
in a 2 that's that well centered, and they're asking a little bit too much. And I know that, I'm not planning on buying that card right now, but it's hard because I want that card
Mhm.
like that. And there's not going to be another good looking 2 for a while. So don't I have to buy it?
Right.
That's part of the struggle, is
Yeah, I
that
have the same.
when you get to the pre-war stuff, or even the early 50s stuff, and you're looking in that 2, 3, 4 range, and there's a good looking one,
Mhm.
it's hard not to buy.
100% agree with you. It's tough. Like I there's a couple cards that I saw when I was at the last card show in Denver. About, I think it was like a month and a half ago. That I saw that there was a guy had some pretty good vintage stuff there, and I was looking at it, I was like, oh man, there's a bunch of cards here that look good that I want to pick up. And I I was trying to have self-control, because the show I went to before that, I literally, like, I bought cards just because I bought a 64 Topps Clemente stand up. It wasn't on my list. I mean, I think it's a great card. It wasn't
Yeah.
on my list, and I saw it in the guy's case. I'm like, that card looks awesome. And he's like, I'll do it this price. And I was like, all right, cool. And I was driving home and I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I'm really happy with the card. I have it up in one of my cases.
Hmm.
But what I do then is say, okay, well, what card now am I going to take off the list because this card
Right.
wasn't on it? And I think
Well,
that,
here's the other thing is, and I'll use this analogy, and I think I used it in a video once. And if I do anything, it's everything's an analogy in life. I speak in parables, but like, I bought a boat like 7 or 8 years ago, and I bought the boat for like $4,500. And my thought process was, this is a really good deal on this boat,
mm,
and I can sell it for $4,500. It's
mhm,
not going to go down to $1,000.
right.
It's pretty much plateaued and flattened out. And if it goes down a little bit, I'm not really risking a lot, but I might look back and regret not buying this boat. And we used it for 2, 3, 4 years. We had fun with it. We sold it, and I sold it actually for a little more than I bought it for. And it's the same thing with that Clemente stand up. Is that's the other thing that I have barking at my ear as I'm thinking I'm not going to buy this is, but wait, if you decide in a month that you shouldn't have bought it, you can get that amount or something close to it. It's like
Mhm,
you're buying a commodity. You're
right.
not buying something that has fleeting value. It's like
Right.
it's a pretty stable asset. It's like buying a brick of gold,
Mhm,
and it may not go way up, but it might not go way down. You're not really risking a lot with some of this stuff. Whereas if you're buying a Wander Franco rookie card, anything could happen.
Right. Right. And it did, right?
Yeah, and Josh Giddey is dealing with some similar stuff too. So that's one of the reasons that a guy gets benched, a guy gets hurt. I don't know what's happening with Burrow cards right now. He's hurt. It's like they're worried about Mike Trout's back, and it's like all of that stuff. But when we're talking about Roberto Clemente, that's a pretty stable asset.
I agree. And that's why I try to stay away from the newer stuff. Like I was going through picking some rookie cards, like I said, for like one from each decade. And, even like this, right? This is a 70s card. It's a George Brett rookie.
Sure. Yep.
This card, I don't foresee that tanking. I don't foresee that going crazy, but it's stable. But then as you get newer.
And right, the other thing about that Brett that you just showed is it's centered.
Yes.
And so when you're buying eye appeal and you're buying centered, those aren't growing on trees and will always have demand. The grade of a 2 or a 3 might fluctuate, but a centered 2 or a 3 with good eye appeal, there's always going to be someone that wants that.
100% agree. And like as you get to the newer stuff, like it's funny. Here's my 80s card, right? Try to pick an iconic 80s card.
He's showing an 89 Upper Deck Griffey in a 10.
So this, I feel like, again, if I needed to move this card, I could sell it for something close to what I paid for it. If I sell it down the road, probably more. But then I go to the even newer cards and the grades drop. And the reason that the grades drop are because the card values fluctuate too much. So I'm not comfortable. Like this one, the SP Foil Jeter, I have it in an 8. When I bought it, I could have, when I bought this in 2019, I could have at the time picked up a 9, not anymore, but I could have picked up a 9. But my fear was if I paid the premium for the 9 and the market reset, it would have a much bigger drop. And like I said, I'm not in it to make money. I'm not in it. I'm in it to collect the cards. But for me, I know that I would have anxiety later if I was like, I paid, for a 9, let's say I paid $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for it in 2019, whatever it was going for. And if it had dropped to like $800, I would say, what could I, in my mind, I could have bought all this other stuff instead. So I bought it in a slightly lower grade, so I got a better price.
I have that Jeter in an 8 as well.
Nice. Right.
All right. Show me this one. And then we're gonna wrap this because we want to try to stay around. Oh yeah, that. So he's now showing the 2001 Topps Chrome traded Ichiro Pujols dual rookie card.
Same with this one. I thought about this one. I thought about getting this one in the 10, but then at the same time, it's a modern card and the market fluctuates more. So if I paid the premium for the 10, I can't imagine it looking any better than that 9. It could go up. I mean, it's not going to be a surprise when Pujols gets in the Hall of Fame, right?
Right.
But it could fluctuate more. So that's kind of my thing is I'm more comfortable spending more on cards that I feel like are more stable value, like you said, right? Like the Clementes, the stand up, right? Like any vintage, not to be morbid, any player that was great that's dead, to me, it's a lot more stable. Nothing will happen, right? Like, who knows, right? Like if Pujols all of a sudden, I'm not saying this could happen, but like Pujols all of a sudden is, hey, he got his like 8th DUI in 2 months, like, right? Like, things could still happen with players after they retire, but once they're dead, especially guys that have been dead for a long time, it's more stable. So I'm more comfortable spending a little bit more on that card because I feel like the price, if I have to get rid of it, the price will stay stable.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Again, I think we see eye to eye. I actually, you gave me some good advice. I'm really gonna process some of this stuff about the tiers, about the actual list, about taking money from the card account and putting it into the goal account. Like, I love those ideas. I obviously love seeing your cards, and I obviously love talking to you about this stuff. And hey, maybe we'll do a part 2 at some point or something.
Awesome.
But again, I first want to say to Mike Moynihan, thank you for asking me to be, a fill-in, like when Jeopardy was having, Aaron Rodgers is the fill-in for a week, and I feel like, the Alex Trebek fill-in for a week, and so I really appreciate you allowing me to do this, and I really appreciate Darren you coming on with me. And
Thanks for
again,
having me.
even though I feel like we've been friends for a while,
Right.
it's fun to actually talk, right? So I genuinely had a really good time over the last hour.
Me too. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on. And Mike, thanks for letting us jump on your show. Appreciate that.
Yeah. So with that, thanks for tuning in. Mike will be back at some point eventually. I don't know what his plan for his other fill-ins is going to be, but I can tell you that we had a lot of fun today, and we hope everybody watching and or listening enjoyed it as well. So with that,
everybody. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Darren, return to collecting. If you're not a subscriber, check him out. I'm Greg from Midlife Cards. If you're not a subscriber or viewer of mine, I hope you'll check out my channel as well.
You guys should check out Greg's channel. He has his content is incredible. Every video he does is so thoughtful and well researched, and he does a great job with his graphs and images and stuff. Like mine looks like a 4-year-old did it, so I don't even try that anymore. His is fantastic. You need to check out his channel.
Now I'm gonna have to send you that bonus I was telling you about.
You learn so much watching his. I learn a lot watching his channel.
Well, you're very kind, and again, you're too kind. All right, everybody, that will do it for us, and thanks for tuning in.